international people. Welcome to the You and I Talk Show. This is your host, Louise Uwachu, broadcasting live from Vancouver, Canada. And today it's Thursday, February 21st. It is 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. Welcome to the You and I Talk Show. Yes, today we are talking about freedom. Freedom. We're not in Scotland with William Wallace screaming freedom. We are in North America. I'm in Canada, and my guest is going to be in Utah, the United States, and we are talking about the audacity of freedom. Some people have the audacity of hope. We have the audacity of freedom. Welcome to the show. Let us bring in our guest and get into the subject right away. Good evening, Mr. Alders.
How are you, Louise? Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being on. Tim Alders, you are a radio personality, a radio host, so this is every day for you.
Every day, 3 hours a day.
Wow, I am so inspired. 3 hours? You do 3 hours of radio every day?
Yep, every day. It's freedom takes a lot of time.
It does. 3 hours. I mean, how much water do you drink, and how do you keep your throat working? Because you've been doing this for many years too.
Yeah, I really don't drink any water while I'm on the air. I don't know. I just have a big mouth, I guess.
You have a big mission. Well, thank you for being with us. And so let's tell our listeners what exactly that you do, because you have a very interesting project called Freedom's Voice Media. What is Freedom's Voice Media, and how did it start?
Well, it was years in the making of being on the radio and talking to people on both sides. In America, that everybody considers a right and a left. Talking to people on every end of the scale who are just sick and tired of politicians, government officials telling them what they should and shouldn't be doing, who know that freedom comes within. And we're all free. We only lose our freedom when we allow politicians or government to take it away from us. And so if we want to be free, we have to speak up for freedom. And so many people are afraid to talk about freedom. In America, it's coming to the point where you will be a thought criminal for even thinking about freedom.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you're like a renegade rebel right now.
Yeah. I actually ran for the U.S. Senate against a long-term Republican here in Utah. As I debated him, when he met me at places, I would tell him that he has been stealing freedom from the American people for years, and it's time we take it back. So, yeah, I don't please anybody on either side of the aisle.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think happened? How did people go from the audacity of hope to having to fight for freedom and to claim freedom? And what exactly happened to your freedom? Where did it go?
Well, our founding fathers learned from wise people throughout history. John Locke, Montesquieu, Rosé, Cicero. They looked at all these people and they said, well, you can have freedom and we'll make this set of rules. And they gave us warnings that said, if you allow people to vote themselves rewards from government to where government can give them something that they take from somebody else, you'll lose freedom. And we've gotten to that point in America. You look at our debt at over $16 trillion. We can't even afford our own country, yet we're trying to tell other countries how they should live and be free. But we have 49 million people in our country on food stamps that just rely on government, so they vote government back in office because it's government who's sustaining them. And until people realize their own self-worth and say, hey, freedom gives me the opportunity to try, but it also gives me the opportunity to fail. It's not giving me equal things. It's giving me equal opportunities and protecting me under the law that way. But that's not where our government's at today. Right now, government wants to take from certain people and give it to other people just to get the votes.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of freedoms did you have that you don't have anymore?
Well, you look at the Patriot Act that was passed under Bush and the National Defense Authorization Act under Obama. They can at any time label any American a terrorist without due process of law. Whereas in our Constitution, the Fourth Amendment means that we have a right to a trial and that we have a right to face our accusers. Right now, the government can say, hey, this person in Utah is talking too much, arrest him, detain him, lock him away. We don't even need to tell anybody where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're violating their own laws, and they don't have the authority to do that here in America.
Isn't that what they do abroad?
Yeah, they shouldn't have the authority to do it abroad either.
Mm-hmm.
But, the arrogance of the American politician is that America is so great that we can do anything to anybody anywhere and justify it by declaring freedom.
But now you don't have freedom at home.
No, now we don't even have freedom at home.
Mm-hmm. So how come you're still free, though, talking on the radio and saying all these things?
Well, if they have their way, they're trying to pass more bills and more legislation. They want to get rid of private radio. The FCC is cracking down on people. Democrats in Congress are saying that conservative talk radio people should be shut down altogether.
Really?
So if given their opportunity, it won't be long before they start targeting shows like mine. When you look at what they were doing with the internet, SOPA and PIPA, I don't know if you heard about those in Vancouver, but they were trying to pass a law that any time they can shut down any website that they felt were stirring up people to protest.
So this is like a law that would be kind of that for the people where they can arrest anyone anytime without any justification. Now it's for the internet.
Yeah. Basically, and Obama, because they couldn't pass it through Congress, signed an executive order that's classified that gives the government control of any internet site they want.
Mm-hmm. And how can people protect themselves? What are the options that you give to people?
Well, you need to start locally. We need to get our governors to stop taking federal handouts, to stop relying on the federal government for money that's not there. And the governors of the states need to start telling the federal government that they have no authority to make federal laws that usurp the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So there's conservative states right now. There's about 14 states with the gun rights that are going on here in America, the big battle over guns,
mm-hmm.
that are saying, and they're passing bills that say the federal government cannot take away the Second Amendment rights to bear arms, and that they will ignore any federal law stating otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Now that is also another big issue in America right now. There seems to be every day they come up with a new reason to why people should give up their guns. Do you have any reasons whatsoever why people should ever give up their guns?
The only reason people should give up their guns is if they're passing it down to their kids. Because guns, and that's where the liberals here in America, the Democrats and even some Republicans,
mm-hmm.
they say that guns are for hunting. The Founding Fathers hunted to survive.
Mm-hmm.
The Founding Fathers told people that the guns were to protect you from out-of-control government.
Mm-hmm.
And our government is so hypocritical. During the Arab Spring, they were parachuting into Middle Eastern countries crates of machine guns and hand grenades that even kids could pick up.
Mm-hmm.
But yet they don't want their own citizens armed. We'll arm every other people across the world and say, rise up against your government, but give us your guns because we don't want you to have the same option if we go bad.
This is so true, what you just said, because America is supporting so many uprisings, so-called revolutions and rebellions across the world, which these people are supposedly rising up against their dictatorship government.
Yeah, our government has the audacity to tell governments to step down, to resign. They arm the people against those governments. I asked a politician once on my show, I said, how would you guys respond if 3% of our population, which there's a lot larger percentage than that who didn't want our president in office, started demanding that our president and our Congress step down? They wouldn't allow it. So our government asked countries across the world, governments, to do exactly what they will never do.
And then they don't want their population armed.
No. The best way to make slaves servants of your citizens is to make sure they can't fight back against an out-of-control government.
Which is precisely what happens in these countries where you have rebel factions and then you have government factions, and then the population is completely disarmed and stuck in the middle of fighting.
Yeah, they're just, collateral damage. I, for one, never want to be collateral damage. Yeah.
So what kind of, how do people, there was a recent publication, for example, of a map which tells people where the people who have guns are and where the people who don't have guns are. I mean, what does that do? Is that legal? And what kind of move is that? Did you see that?
Well, what was hypocritical is that happened in New York. And a newspaper published a map of everybody who had gun permits under licensed registrars and their address. And so they were demanding people to start telling these owners to get rid of their guns. Well, when people got outraged because they published this map, the newspaper went out and hired armed security to protect themselves. So that was hypocritical on the one aspect, but then they interviewed criminals. And the criminals go, well, that's the perfect map because I know what houses not to go to if I want to rob and not be stopped. And if I need a weapon, I know what house to go to when nobody's home to steal a gun.
Wow. I mean,
so they open themselves up to a lot of liability.
And are they are they allowed to do that? Isn't there a law? Isn't that a private thing? I don't understand how just because I have a gun, my address could be publicized in the newspapers. I mean, I'm just saying.
Well, in America, when you have a concealed weapons permit, you have to get it through your state, and you have to register, file documents with the state, which are public record.
Oh, it's public record. Okay.
Yeah, so the county has the option on whether to release that to everybody or not. The county in New York decided to release it. Other laws are now being passed where they can't release it in other states in the country now.
Wow, that was so horrible. Now, coming back to your work and your show, you previously had a show called Buy Back America, or was it a website?
It was a show and a website. It was basically a show to support Main Street businesses. Against the large corporations that are taking over small communities and main streets across the world. I mean, you have it where you're at probably with Walmarts and everybody else. They move into a community and the small businesses end up shutting down. That is a real detriment for both people getting paid, job security, a lot of other things. And I was trying to educate people that, hey, once you get everything else shut down in the neighborhood, what makes you think these Walmarts and these big box stores are going to keep their prices low? When they're the only people left in the city, why not charge what they want?
Yeah, that is actually so true. No competition.
I wanted people to support the small people.
So how do people support the small people? I mean, Buy Back America. What exactly does it mean?
Well, the process works anywhere in the world. It could work in Buy Back Vancouver. It works Buy Back England. Basically, you don't shop at the big stores. You pay the little bit extra money and support the small business in your community.
Okay.
And you say, I'm supporting you because you've been here, you're a member of the community, you support community events, and I want to support you. Because every time we open our wallet or our purse, we're validating a business's existence.
Yeah.
And to validate Chinese products in Walmarts, what we're doing is we're shutting down economies all over the world that made communities grow and thrive.
But many communities around the world and many countries, they do this. They give tax breaks to foreigners. People who are going to come in their country with foreign money and invest in their countries, and they get these advantages. And then since they have the tax breaks, they have better prices than the local community people who are struggling and who are making something.
And that's when governments need to be thrown out. See, because that's not freedom. That's not equality. What equality means is everybody has the same opportunity. If I open up a shop for food and you open up a shop for food, we both have to negotiate our own prices. We both have to price them. We don't get different benefits from government, and we're not subsidized by government. It'll be our product that determines whether we succeed or fail. And governments aren't doing that. You look at the banking system, they pick and choose all throughout the world which banks who ripped off their people would be saved and what would be shut down.
So
they use your money.
So it's not based on good performance.
No, it's not based on quality products. It's not based on anything other than you do a favor for somebody in government, you donate money to their campaign, and they reward you and give money back to you to pay back their debt. And you understand, government don't have money. They don't generate products. Their only source of income is people. They take from people, no matter where you're at in the world. You are a product of your government. Everything they spend, everything they do, they have to take the money from you, your labor. What you build, what you create, they take it to build themselves up.
But then since the government has the guns, they can take your labor and your product, and what's your option?
When our founding fathers stood up against England at the time had the world's biggest military. They had the best arms. They had the best weapons. But you have to understand, the military of these countries, their mothers, their fathers, their sisters and brothers are their own civilians. Most societies, you'll have a hard time getting military people to fire on their own families. And
so whenever you have a demonstration, call military families and put them in front.
Yeah. Get the, military people, what they try and do is they try and break up civil discontent before it ever gets large enough to where they have to make a decision and send large troop forces in. And, when government fears the citizens, there's liberty and freedom. When people fear the government, there's tyranny.
Yeah. Everywhere in a country where people are scared of their government, that is an indication of tyranny.
Correct.
And everywhere where people are not scared of their government and they're expressing themselves, that is an indication of
liberty and freedom growing.
Now, how does freedom's voice survive because if you're not going to get money from the people who have money, who sponsor all the media is sponsored by advertisers, by sponsors, and so how can you survive as a media when you're not getting that money? Or are you getting that money? Then if you're getting that money, how are you selecting whose money do you accept and whose money do you not accept?
We haven't accepted any right now. It's me and a group of people who worked hard all our lives, and we're building this process. We are talking to smaller, what we call American-made businesses, the mom-and-pop shops, the people who do business here that aren't the big, Fortune 500 companies, the people who get government grants or subsidies, the people who are held down, who have all the restrictions from governments. That's who we're going to be supporting. We're going to be launching a website that can go across the world that's called My Town Main Street. And it will be for little businesses to put coupons on for free and people to go to for free to get deals at businesses who don't get the government subsidies. So they'll know who is where they're at. So if you're traveling anywhere in America, you can go to that website and you can find businesses that are small businesses that want to give you deals to shop there.
Oh, that's really great. That's a great idea, because I was wondering, how do you know which business to support and which business to stay away from?
And we're going to get that information out. We just launched version 1 of freedomsvoicemedia.com. Last month, part of the month, we got 150,000 visits. Already in February, we're at 250,000. And we're getting hits from all over the world. We figure by 6 months, we'll be having 5 to 20 million people who want freedom and liberty in their area visiting and participating on our site.
So have you started offering your, how do you go about syndicating your show?
You know, I am on shows all across the country. We're launching what I call the Freedom Minute here in a week, which is a minute freedom message that radio stations will be playing throughout the country. I have stations in California and Texas who pick up on my show, and it's just the little stations with the smaller signals where the owners are freedom-loving that pick up this type of show. We're broadcast on the Internet through Red State Talk Radio. We're just out there trying to make a difference, just like you are, Louise.
I'm trying. I'm inspired by your. I'm inspired to see so many people, so many other people doing it. It's like, wow, thank you.
Well, and that's the thing. People like you who hear my message are writing articles based on freedom and liberty, and we're publishing those on our website because so many people have their own website, but they just have their own audience. But as we start pulling all these radio hosts, all these liberty-minded bloggers and people throughout the country, and they post everything on one website, it gives multiple information, and people we are Freedom Central. We're where people go to learn about freedom wherever.
Now, earlier we talked about these labels that people have in America, in Canada, and the rest of the world, where people call you a conservative or where people call you a Democrat or liberal. I mean, what do those labels mean for you, and how do they come into play when it comes to freedom? They're
hate labels. What it is a way for government to get us focused on each other instead of focused on all the evil they're doing. Because if they can get the media to say, well, you have to dislike this person because they have this belief on this social issue, so you're totally different people, then we're not focused on the fact that they're ripping us off. Thomas Jefferson said at one point that politicians are like magicians. They distract you with their right hand and steal from you with their left. In Rome, they used the circus, the games, to distract the people. Government uses media, TV, reality TV, and labels to distract us from focusing on what governments are doing.
I see. So you want people to come on your website Now, how is your website, how is Freedom's Voice going to be different from the other political pages, so many political pages that are out there?
I make people, if we write articles, we show facts and we source it. So when I say president or dictator, I'm not making a claim. I'm allowing you to formulate your own opinion. And I tell people, this is what he's done. This is the laws he's passed. This is the website where you can see the laws he's passed. You read this and tell me if you believe this is freedom-based or if this is tyranny-based. Make your own opinion. And,
now,
you know,
yes, what do you think happened to Obama? Because he was like the definition of freedom when he was running.
You know, he was a very good puppet for the liberal left. They knew that they were losing, so they got somebody who was half black, who was a very good speaker, and they told him what to say. They told him what message to put out there. And, you know, people still, if you watch interviews that are done by people here in America, they'll ask people in inner cities why you voted for him. The only reason they give is his color of his skin. The people here are becoming so uninformed that they're not even looking, that they're losing their liberty and freedom.
And that's part of these labels that we were talking about. There's no difference than voting for someone just because he's a liberal or a conservative or black.
No, the Republicans are doing it here also. They're trying now to cater to the Hispanics. You know, they're saying, okay, we're not going to stand on what our principles were anymore. We're going to make you believe that we want you here in our country, even if you violated the law.
So you can, so they can vote for them later on, or what
exactly?
It's a vote.
That's exactly why they do it, because it's a vote. All politicians care about is a vote. Politicians want to get back in office, and they'll do anything to get there. They will buy and sell and prostitute themselves out to just get people to vote for them.
But with no mission, with no ambition to do anything good for their people, I mean, what is the point of being in office if it's not to do something?
Well, you know, Benjamin Franklin toured Europe, and he said that for America to remain free, we had to treat politics as a place of honor and not a place of profit. Because once a position becomes a position where you become filthy rich and you have ultimate power and you are different, power corrupts. And you look at the politicians, the average income for our Congress is over $1 million.
Ooh.
You know, they're no longer representatives of the people. I actually proposed a plan at one time that the representatives in Congress should never make more than what the average income is for the area they represent. So if you come from a place in Utah where the annual salary is $40,000, that's all you get paid. You don't get the $174 plus the retirement plus the benefits.
How about financing politicians? Why can't they not be restricted from being financed by companies? Because companies do not vote. You say that they are looking for votes. Why do companies who do not vote and whose leaders are not voted pay for the politicians who are looking for votes from the people?
Well, that's an easy thing to answer, because companies are greed. They want to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. They want a return on investment for what they do. Well, if they go ahead and give millions of dollars to a politician and they get $500 million in government grants, Isn't that a good return on investment? If you could give $1 million and get $500 million, would you do it?
Yeah, that's a beautiful investment.
So, and who makes the rules? The politicians. And why not? If I can make a rule to where I can give a company $500 million of your money, and they'll give me $1 million of their money, that's a win-win for everybody except you, who I'm stealing from.
Wow. So what is the solution to that vicious circle? What do you do to that circle right there?
First, people everywhere need to unite and start looking as a government, not the provider, not the people that are there to provide everything for them. Mm-hmm. They have to look and say, hey, all I need is an equal opportunity to succeed. Mm-hmm. And if government lets me be equal to everybody else, I'm going to be okay with that. Mm-hmm. But to get people to walk away from what they feel they deserve. And in America, people are of the mindset now to where, hey, I've paid taxes, so I deserve this. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to send my politician back to Washington to get it for me. America's going broke. $16 trillion in debt is more than our whole GDP for a year. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing, outrageous sum, and it's not getting any better. They made the deal. Obama said, "Listen, we're going to go ahead, and if we can't come up with spending cuts, we'll put these automatic cuts in place." Well, they didn't come up with spending cuts. Now the automatic cuts are supposed to take place, and now he's crying foul that, hey, we can't allow that to happen. Well, $85 billion when you run a deficit of $1.2 trillion a year is almost not even a dent. It's like if you, Louise, spent $10,000 a month more than what you had, and you decided to cut that back by $500. Would your government, would your law enforcement allow you to operate that way?
No bank is going to give me that money.
No, but in government, they don't need to rely on a bank. They just take it from the people. Mm-hmm. So if you need that money, you need to make up that extra $9,500 a month. Could you go to your neighbor and just take it from him because he might have it?
No.
Because it's theft.
Yeah.
Well, then why do we allow government to do it?
Because they have the guns.
Yeah, they have the guns, they have the power, and we believe they have the solution. Well, if the solution is bankrupting our children mm-hmm. and causing us to hate our neighbor, I don't think that's a good solution for anybody.
Wow. Now, you said something very interesting. Why can't the people refuse to pay taxes? Because the people are financing this. And
because they convinced no. When you look at it, only 40% of the people in America actually pay taxes.
Only 40%.
Only 40% pay taxes. The rest get some kind of rebate. I mean, everybody pays a little bit of taxes because they, pay food taxes or other taxes. Mm-hmm. But only 40% actually pay taxes to where it's income tax. Mm-hmm. The rest get earned income credits. The rest get all these different things. So, why would they complain? Because they're not really paying any money. They're getting it. They're taking it. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem with liberty and freedom. When you can vote yourself to take money from somebody else and have somebody else be the thief, why would you ever stop that behavior?
But what I don't understand is, how is paying income tax part of freedom? Because when you're a slave,
it's actually not legal.
Oh, please tell us more about that.
Well, in 1913, we had an awful year here in America. They convinced the people of this country that we no longer needed to have the states send representatives to government, that it would be okay if we just allowed people to vote for the senators, so the people could be corrupted by the corporations. And we also got Amendment 16, which basically gave the government the right to tax us up to any level without us having any say. And then we had the Federal Reserve Act, which allowed the banks to centralize all the power. So we lost pretty much 1913. We're in our 100-year anniversary. Was the year we lost pretty much all of our liberties and freedoms in this country because we turned everything over to government.
So the government since 1913 can take any amount of your income without you saying anything about it. And the Federal Reserve can also print as much money as they want without you saying anything about it. Is that pretty much what it is?
Pretty good deal, huh?
Wow. Now, how do you get back to freedom? I mean, 100 years. That's a lot of years right there.
Well, the Constitution is still our valid document. The problem is we've allowed the Supreme Court system here in America, the Congress, and the executive branch to work together in two parties that control the country. But the final checks and balance was Americans united. If all of a sudden Americans start to wake up and say, listen, I might be different than my neighbor, but I love freedom too. So if we unite around freedom and law, we don't always have to agree with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we had people in our country start using that philosophy, government would start to recognize that they're not able to, deny us, convince us and lie to us about everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm. Now,
and then they would be in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But so what is the best way of taking your freedom back? Is it by being like Gandhi and refusing to cooperate, or is it by doing like you did in the first place when you were fighting for freedom by having a civil war? Which one is it?
Well, we have the legal recourse here with our documents, and
Mm-hmm.
I never want to see anybody getting harmed in wars.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing is we have to, work together and start holding government accountable and stop allowing them to convince us that we're each other's enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Because if government can't pull the wool over our eyes that way, they're going to start to get worried because then we're focused on them.
Yeah. So is there any specific actions that you tell people to take or any steps towards that freedom that you want that you tell people to take?
We're asking people to become freedom's knights.
Mm-hmm.
What it is there are all kinds of iPads, iPhones, technology and capability of people to go and record. And we want them to go out and record politicians and government officials and anybody who works for government behaving badly and get us copies of those videos. And we're going to do a show called Government Behaving Badly. And we're going to say this was submitted to us from Jack in Maine. And this is what his city council was doing. It's totally illegal. You guys need to rally around and fight this and get this bad politician out of there. But people need to get involved.
That's not a bad idea at all because they say that public humiliation and exposing people in the public is what actually does the trick. That's why people always do things in hiding, right? Once you start exposing people to the public and in public and actually exposing what they're doing, it's the only way for them to actually stop. It's like when a thief gets caught, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. That with technology the way it is today, it's so hard to hide anything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's hundreds of millions of people out there at all times watching these people. All we want them to do is record them. And if you catch them doing something stupid, send it to us. We'll do the exposing.
So, people around the world who are listening, or around America and Canada, are you going to be publishing a list of the politicians? Because,
we do.
so that...
We actually, I ranked America's Congress constitutionally, and I showed, sure, Democrats only scored 30%, Republicans scored 60%, but I asked the question this way to one of my Republican senators. I said, would your wife be happy with you cheating on her 40% of the time? And he said, of course not. And I said, then why should we be happy with you violating the laws of our country 40% of the time? And if your wife is okay with you cheating on her 40% of the time, can I have her phone number?
Wow, this is so great. I mean, that's a brilliant idea. Turn the cameras on them. Put them in the media.
Put the focus on the people that are making the rules that are taking away our liberty and freedom.
Now, does this apply to the bankers and...
Oh, yeah. Anybody who lives off of the government money, we want to know what they're doing corrupt, and we'll point it out. I will be the most hated man in America within a year by politicians and corporations. I'm okay with that.
And the most loved by real people.
Yeah. I guess, who do you want to love you? The poor people, the people that count, or the people that try and corrupt you? So.
Now, what about your security and your freedom? Are you not afraid to be kidnapped and taken to Guantanamo or something?
To kidnap me, they're going to have to kill me. I still have my guns.
But this is the thing. I always think, like, okay, you have your guns and you have your right to your guns for now, right now, but your government is so heavily armed that you may need fighter jets and rocket launches and drones to fight back or to even have a chance. I mean, what can guns do against these highly sophisticated drones that they have now?
But the thing is my voice. To silence a voice, all they do is they make a martyr. I'm out there. People know what I'm fighting for. They know I'm not asking for government to be killed, or I want them to behave within the bounds of the Constitution. I want them to obey the same laws we have to obey. And if they're not obeying the law, I'm going to point it out. So I'll be the voice, I'll be the target, because I'm out there and people are seeing me out there. And I hope that gives other people courage to get out there also.
Definitely. Now, how can people get in touch with you to send you the information, the dirt that they collect?
If they go to info@Freedom's Voice Media, all those emails go to me or Tony, and we get them. And if you have something bigger in a file, we'll email you back. We respond to all our emails. That's just info@Freedom's Voice Media. We respond to everybody, and we want people to let us know what's going on all around the world, in America and Canada, when governments are behaving badly. Because, you see, people everywhere were born free. And America is supposed to be an example to freedom. And so I will talk freedom with anybody, anywhere.
So before we let you go, there's an interesting article that I read on your website, because I have been visiting it. It's a very inspiring website. I encourage you to keep up this great work. Now, there's an interesting article on there by a certain Frank Walker, which is Veterans Suicide. How is the situation, the American Army veterans who are killing themselves more than ever today, and no one seems to care. No one seems to be talking about it.
Frank he's actually one of the most, he started the a lot of the interrogation and intelligence gathering systems for our government when he was in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And Obama asked 4 retired military people, 3 of them liberals, to evaluate and do a study on the military. And when it came out that all these military personnel were killing themselves, they were depressed and everything else, the Obama administration didn't want this information published.
Mm-hmm.
So they fired all these people.
Hold on.
And
They hired them to tell them what was going on in the military.
And then they let them go.
And then when they filed a report that they did not like, which the report was saying they were depressed and killing themselves, they were fired.
Correct.
Whoa. Cold.
And so they are trying to make citizens aware of just how the military personnel are being forgotten by our own government. They're getting used as pawns and tools by our government in all these Middle Eastern countries where we don't belong in the first place, and then we're forgetting about them. So Frank wrote that article after doing a show. He's a radio host out of Florida after doing a show with these 4 people, and wrote the article for the website. So, yeah, it's an amazing article.
Yeah. Now, what did the government want to hear?
They didn't want to hear anything. They just wanted to hear everything's okay.
Well, what's the point of ordering for people to do a report and to see the situation in the army if you don't want to know the situation?
Well, I believe that government wants you to fabricate and tell them what they want to hear.
Oh.
And these people didn't just bow down and tell them what they wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So then the cover-up begins.
So do you have an opinion or an idea of why people are committing suicide in the army?
I know a lot of friends who served in the Middle East, and when you send people back to a war zone and you tie their hands, you say you're going to go back there, but you can't fire unless you're fired upon. And you have to stay within the rules that the UN is setting for you. Even though the people you are fighting can behead you while you're alive, this is what you're required to do. And you see your friends and your buddies blown up by these road mines and rocket mortars, and you see people get tortured and beat to death, and you see military people who are killed and their bodies brutalized and hung out for their citizens to cheer about. I think that would affect anybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And these people, they don't go back just once. Our government sends them back there. There are some of these young men and women that are back there for their 4th tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what do you think about the war that they are fighting? It's
not a war. A war in America is supposed to be authorized by our Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Congress never authorized Libya. They never authorized any of this. But our president, who said he was anti-war in 2008 when he first got elected, has sent more people into wars, into areas for this supposed war on terror. And how do you fight a war on terror in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Who's your enemy?
Mm-hmm.
Wars are declared against the country. You know what your target is. You know who you're going after. With Osama, that was the reason we were supposed to be in Afghanistan. But yet Osama's been dead, and we're still in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Why? We went into Libya because 7 people were killed when we started bombing Libya. At that time, over 2,500 people in Syria were killed. Our president said we went into Libya for humanitarian reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Now 70,000 people have been killed in Syria. We're not helping them.
Mm-hmm.
So was it really humanitarian or was it oil?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you bomb a country and call it humanitarian aid? I always asked on my radio show, what did we do? Put a bunch of potatoes in the top of the missile, and then when they blew up, the people had mashed potatoes to eat?
Yeah. This is really great to hear Americans who talk like you because there are so many people around the world who hate America and every American because of the things that your government does to the rest of the world. And they don't know that there are Americans like you who do not agree with what the government is doing.
There are millions of Americans who do not agree with the way our government's behaving. We're having as hard a time controlling our government as people throughout the world are having controlling theirs.
Mm-hmm. So what can people around the world who are not in America do that would advance everybody's journey towards freedom?
We need to start embracing, accepting people for who they are, accepting them for whatever religion they are, and we need to stop allowing government to paint the picture on what we should believe with people. Mm-hmm. And, Freedom's Voice Media is a place for people who want liberty and freedom. I don't care where they're from, to start talking about liberty and freedom. Mm-hmm. Because if we get enough people talking about it, if everybody put Freedom's Voice Media in an email and send it out to 10 of their friends, and then they send it out to 10 of their friends, pretty soon freedom will be viral.
Yes, it will. We will be sending this one to thousands.
And see, that's the thing. We want freedom to go viral. Mm-hmm. We want people who are tired of being used as pawns on a big game of chess by governments everywhere to unite and say, listen, I don't know these people in Europe. I don't know these people in Canada, but they're born. They're flesh and blood. They want to breathe. They want to succeed. They want to run through the wilderness. They want to be able to grow crops and eat food. Or they want to raise their families without the threat of government imposing their will upon them. Then we're all alike.
Mm-hmm. And everywhere they have the same problems. People cannot grow the food they want because the government is interfering with them growing the food that they want. People cannot do the businesses that they want. People can't move as they want because the governments are interfering, despite the fact that the government gets all their money from the people.
Yeah, and we have Senate Bill 581 here in America that doesn't allow people to grow food and sell it to a neighbor. Because it hasn't gone through all the regulations and all the government approval process. Where people used to, if I grew potatoes and you grew pigs, I can give you potatoes to have with your pigs and you can give me some pork chops and we can have dinner. Mm-hmm. Even our government won't allow that anymore.
Mm-hmm. So people need to start, disrespecting their government? Is that what you're saying?
A little civil disobedience. We need to start recognizing that government doesn't have that authority, that we give them that authority. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if we give it to them, we can take it back.
Mm-hmm. So we're the government.
We are. And if you look at it, that's been the way since civilization began. Whether you believe in God or not, love thy neighbor, don't kill somebody else. These weren't, the Bill of Rights for America in our Constitution were what people recognized all throughout history as good ideas. These good ideas have been around forever. Mm-hmm. It's just whether we allow ourselves to be influenced by good ideas or are we willing to allow government to pervert the good ideas and convince us that that's not the way to act and behave.
Yes. Team Alders, thank you so much for being with us today. Please, before we let you go, remind people where they need to come and visit you and visit your show. And thank you for coming on the show despite your little cold. I can hear that you have a tiny little cold.
I have a throat problem right now. I've been bleeding from my throat, but I'll live. So
yeah, it happens to me too. Whether I have a cold or not, I'm still doing radio. I love this stuff.
Yeah, going out and doing speeches every day and rallies and 3 hours of radio a day. I think sometimes your voice just says, "Hey, take a rest," and I'm not willing to do that yet.
So please remind people where they can find your website and where they can find you and how to keep in touch, and we will let you go, and we can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing.
It's www.freedoms, and that's freedom with an S, voicemedia.com. If they type in the old buybackamerica.com, it also just takes them straight to Freedom's Voice Media. So whichever's easier, every email on that website goes directly to me. I'd love to hear from people throughout the world. And make sure you share that website with 10 of your friends. Share it. You know, we have our Facebook page, Freedom's Voice Media. We have our Twitter. Start following what we're doing and start participating in freedom.
Yes, and the mission and your homework, people, is to follow the politicians, hold them accountable, record them when, you know, doing wrong, not doing the job that we gave them, and then send all those recordings to freedomsvoicemedia.com. Team Aldous, thank you very much.
Thank you, Louise. You have a great day there in Canada.
I will. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Wow, my international people, thank you so much for being with us. That was Team Aldous of freedomsvoicemedia.com. So, you know what to do. Expose. Expose them. Bring the light, and the darkness will disappear. That's exactly what happens. Until the light shows up, darkness always thinks that they're the thing. So we're going to prove them wrong. Freedom is uhuru in Swahili. Oh, there's this song that I love. Tuko na uhuru. Uhuru, freedom. All right, my international people. I'm not going to sing because obviously if I was born to be a singer, I would not be a radio talk show host. Have a great night. Stay alert. Thank you, Louise Uachu from Vancouver, Thursday, February 21st. You and I talk show. Muramuche Uhuru Imana.